All right. And we are officially live. Hello, Facebook and social media community. Dave Uloa here, coming to you live from our Warriors and Queens studio. And we are so grateful and blessed to have two special guests that we're going to be interviewing today. And as you see the title of today's Zoom, From the Brink of Divorce to Living a Fairy Tale Marriage. And that is not an exaggeration. Hopefully, today you might be somewhere in your life or in your relationship where you might be thinking that, man, I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know if we can keep going. I don't know if it's worth it. I don't know if I know. I don't know if my partners, I don't know if I can forgive. There's just so much suffering happening in relationships. And this beautiful couple has been a couple that we have personally seen incredible transformations. And make no mistake about it, they also have put in the work. They have opened up their heart. They'll let you know it hasn't been easy, but it definitely has been worth it. And when you think about how we spend our days, who do we spend the most time with in our life? And it's not at work. It's not our friends. It's not our boss. It's not our coworkers. The person that we spend the most time with is the person that we live with. It's the partner that we chose to marry. It's the partner that we come home to. It's the partner we go to sleep with. It's the partner we wake up with. And when there's a lot of challenge and bickering and arguing and fighting all the time and tension and just win-lose type of situations, it becomes very, very stressful. And so many people are throwing in the towel and giving up. And our goal at Warriors and Queens is to help save at least 1 million marriages around the world. And we know that we can do that because we were our first clients. And today we have the privilege of introducing our amazing couple, Cindy and Lindsay. Lindsay and Cindy Bloomfeld. How you doing, Lindsay and Cindy?
Good. Happy to be one on that check. You got one off that. So we're here.
So 999,000.
Well, Lindsay and Cindy, thank you. We have people watching all over social media, and a lot of people are going to watch the replay. So please introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about you.
Well, I'm Lindsay Bloomfeld. This is my beautiful queen, Cindy. I'm from Washington State. I'm a union pipe fitter. From Washington State. I'm a traveling union pipe fitter. I'm here in Arizona working at an Intel, putting in pipe and working with teams and currently running a team. I love what I do, but it's extremely busy, extremely stressful, extremely tiring. But I like what I do. And what else can I say? I'm just grateful to be on this call and to be able to share my story and to still be married to this beautiful girl and have the relationship that we had. So.
And I'm Cindy. We've been married 10 years, almost 11. We're a blended family, and all of our children are now adults. Whoop, whoop. So we're grandparents, empty nester grandparents. 5 between us and 2 grandbabies and 1 on the way. I do work as customer service and have been doing that for about a year now. Living in Arizona and building the dream.
Outstanding. Thank you, guys. And obviously these Zooms are designed to help to bring some potential relation where people could say me too, and some solutions and also some inspiration. So if each of you, because I know you each have had your own journey along your relationships, and where you are today is not where you were before. And we all have a past, and we all have relationships that have worked and relationships that haven't worked. So if you could each share a little bit of your relationship journey before you met, Give us a little bit of, where if you were married, and what was the cause of the breakup of that relationship that brought you guys together?
I'll let my queen go first.
Okay. So prior to Lindsay, I was married for 16 years. He was like my knight in shining armor. He swept me off my feet. We were married. I came in with a previous daughter, and about 3 years into that marriage, I was very enmeshed in my relationships with my parents. And when we had our first daughter, I was at a crossroad where he was making me choose between that relationship of enmeshment versus standing beside him. And I had come to know Christ at that time and really wanting to follow the biblical. And what I had learned through that is anything that would draw me closer to my ex, he would use to gain control, to gain, just complete control. And so after about 3 years of marriage, he ended up moving my girls and I across state. So we were isolated from friends and family. He had a way of being able to manipulate and twist. So I had no communication with my family and my closest friends for about 3 to 4 years, and that slowly came. And the last 3 years of that marriage, or 4 years, I started having more involvement with my family. And as I grew in who I saw myself in Christ, and knowing that I am a child of God and I am loved, that there was more to life. Well, not more to life. I didn't mean that. But we were actually in counseling and pastoral counseling. And it was the first time that he showed himself in front of somebody else. He got angry. He threw his pop across the floor or across the room. He was cussing. And at that point, my oldest daughter at the time was 18. The younger two were 11 and 10. And he made me choose between him and my oldest daughter. And so at that point, I had to decide if this was a life that I was going to continue to live in. Am I going to be isolated from the ones that I love, the ones that are closest to me? Because anytime he felt a threat in his position with me, or he felt like he was losing control, he had a way of being able to manipulate and twist just enough for there to be a little bit of truth to fall into that. And so, and Lindsay and I had been we had met probably a year and a half prior to that through going to community college. And when I had posted in Facebook that I was just needing prayer, he reached out. But I'll let him share his story, and then we can kind of come back together with that.
So I reached out and we started walking the lake, like a 3-mile lake at home. But that's where we really started to get to know each other. But I had a previous marriage that lasted about 7 years, and it started off great, started off amazing, and then slowly became zero passion, sleeping on the couch for weeks and months at a time, and it was just miserable. The final straw was I believe her cheating, but to back up a little bit, I was super nice guy. I thought I had to do everything right. I thought I had to meet all her needs and take care of everything, and so I did, and I guess that just made her miserable because I probably wasn't leading the way I was supposed to. But that particular relationship kind of broke me. And if you can imagine a man can be broken. Um, and it put me in a place where I just I didn't feel like I was good enough. And as I started to build myself back up after that divorce, that was when I met Cindy, and basically we were two broken people that got together and found some comfort and some peace walking the lake, and that's where our journey began. Um, Me, the nice guy, and her having been controlled for so many years. Um, and you can kind of imagine where the story went from there.
So the first year we were married, I mean, it was good. We were trying to figure out blended life with totally, completely different parenting styles. My girl, the four that we had still, that my oldest was out of the house, but our four that we had together, or that we had combined, were only a year and a half apart each one. And so having teenage girls and trying to parent was very difficult. And I didn't realize it at the time, but I started becoming the controlling one in the relationship. It was either my way or no way. And I would overpower Lindsay. And that went on for several years. And so I actually became the abuser. And it was shocking to realize that. And I had come to a point where I didn't like who I was, and it really affected our marriage. At one point, probably about 3 or 4 years ago, I had planned my escape, if you want to call it, because I felt so out of control. Because as much control as I was trying to gain, I was in less control, and it was just a vicious cycle.
So at this point in our life, and I think this started years before that with my first marriage. Um, I had pretty much lost hope. Um, and when I found Cindy, I'm like, oh, I can be loved, because she was so amazing, and she made me feel like I could do no wrong, and she loved me for who I was, and she didn't want to change me. And um, I loved to go fishing, and she was like, yeah, let's go. And we'd go to movies, and and then as things kind of got on, she kept saying, I want the honeymoon to wear off. I want the honeymoon to wear off so that we can get into real life. And we did, and it did. And real life kind of hit us really fast. Um, Basically, I was to the point where I lost all my passion for the things that I loved. I stopped pursuing my talents. I stopped fishing. I stopped um, wanting to go out in public and being with people. Um, Growing up, I loved people. I loved serving people. I was a missionary. Um, and I kind of lost my passion for everything. Kind of entered a dark place when I would try to communicate with her to build me back up and give me some strength. She thought that I was criticizing her, and it just became a battle. Um, so I'd come home, and I pursued all these things that she was interested in, like fermenting and certain diet and making sourdough bread and things. I'm gonna surprise her with all this stuff, and she'd come home and go, eh. Or I'd spend all day cleaning the kitchen and think that she'd come home and be excited, and she'd be like, oh, it wasn't that good. Or I'd have all these ideas for projects around the house, because I was always working on the house and trying to remodel it and make it nice. And I'd say, hey, you like this idea? She says, no, I don't like it. No, I don't like that. And so all these things that I needed to build me up were shot down. And I felt like I didn't have a purpose in our marriage. I felt I felt so broken that I'm the problem. There's something wrong with me if I can't get a woman in my life to one, respect me, to one, make me feel loved and wanted and desired, and for another part, just to be appreciated for the contributions that I make, for supporting her girls and everything else, and to just have some passion and some touch and some love in it. And I think in her mind, she wanted me to lead and step up. But on the other hand, she was in a place where she had to control everything because she had been controlled so many times that she couldn't allow that. So if she was to give me a little bit to boost me up, it would keep me from trying to step up. So,
Wow.
But
wow, man, thank you guys for sharing and being so open and vulnerable, and those that are watching live and on the replay, this is real talk. This is real life relationships on how people are experiencing life. And divorce is a real thing. If you know somebody or if you've gone through a divorce, put a 1 in the comment section. If you or you know somebody that's gone through a divorce, and how painful that can be on many different levels. I was just talking to somebody yesterday who was sharing with me, she went through a really, really ugly divorce, and it was so ugly and so much money was exchanged that her attorney was able to retire. And I said, what? And she says, yeah, this is the one that made out are the attorneys. And that's so true. But what gets it to that place? And that, whether it be, there's so many reasons that people get a divorce, whether it be abuse, or I've talked to a lot of people that maybe it's alcoholism or drug addiction or physical abuse or mental abuse, emotional abuse. And when you go through a divorce, it is like a death in a relationship. So as you can see with Lindsay and Cindy, if you can imagine the toll that it takes on a man that want to have to go through that. So he becomes the pleaser and the nice guy to avoid that. And then sure, he's going to meet his perfect match, who's going to be Cindy, who actually is coming out of a chaotic, controlling relationship where never again, I mean, if you can imagine that, to protect her heart, there's no way somebody's going to be open to somebody to be leading or to open up her heart and feel safe because of her experience. So when they both meet, I love what you guys said. When is the honeymoon period going to be over? Because we all go through that honeymoon period. But the question is, how long is that honeymoon period? And in our experience, the longest honeymoon period for a relationship is about 2 years. And then after 2 years, now things get real. We're like, oh man, I wouldn't realize you left the toilet seat up all the time. Oh my gosh, you don't put the toothpaste cap back on the tooth. That didn't bug me before, but now it really, and life starts to get real. And so if you guys, and thank you so much for being so open and vulnerable, Cindy and Lindsay, if you guys can fast forward now, and now you guys, before you came to our live event, share with us where you were at that place, each of you, and then why you decided to go to a live event, and then we'll talk about what happened there.
Okay, so I'm just going to share just a little bit. So I came from a very abusive, emotionally, mentally, psychologically, verbally, and physically abusive relationship. So I was not going to allow Lindsay at all to have any sort of control per se. And him being the nice guy, really, it fueled me to feel like I had that control, to be able to put him in his place, to emasculate him, to have that, to where I felt my safety was there, when actually in reality there was no safety, and there was always internal conflicts that I would feel. So before Warriors and Queens, I had come down and visited my parents. We had already had our conflicts. We weren't getting along very well. We were just kind of coexisting. And I had my daughter, my oldest was graduated. My youngest was a junior in high school.
Rebecca.
And I had already planned out I was going to move to Arizona. I would have and was going to enroll her in school, contacted coaches for her to play volleyball and all of this stuff. And I get home and Lindsay has a feeling and he asks me about it. And I'm like, I don't even want to go there. It's Christmas time. Let's not even talk about it. And he goes, Cindy, I know you're planning to leave. And I'm like, yes. And I'm not going to talk about it because Christmas is the next day. And I will go to your parents for Christmas and we'll discuss it. And I'm leaving shortly after that. Well, I remember on the drive to his parents' house on Christmas Day, looking out the window, I can tell you exactly where we were on the freeway. And I was crying. I was upset. I didn't want to be in that car and I was just ready to leave. And a still small voice, I heard that I was to stay, to love Lindsay the way Christ loves Lindsay, to that I am the bride of Christ, and that in order, I mean, I don't remember exactly what came out of that for me was that I was getting in the way of the man that God has called Lindsay to be because of who I was showing up at. So I really had to look internal, and I didn't like what I heard. I was ready to check out and leave, but I stayed, and it did get better there for a little while. And I'll let you go ahead and.
So she didn't leave. That's a good thing. So with my job, we ended up selling our house when our kids graduated high school, and we bought a motorhome. Got rid of all our stuff, everything, went to the road, and we gave it away. And I ended up working in Oregon for a while and then up in Seattle. And after 6 months in Seattle, we couldn't find any place else to park our RV. So when my job ended after 6 months, I could have taken another job and stayed there because it's really good money in Seattle. But we were like, well, we can't park, so we got to go somewhere else. And she's like, well, we've got a family reunion in Arizona. We can drive down there. It's out in the desert. We can boondock and with everybody else and have a good time. And I'm like, why not? Let's go. So we took our entire house and drove it to Arizona. And while we were there, she was, telling everybody that we're moving here and looking for a place. And I'm like, Cindy, what are you doing telling everybody we're moving here? She says, well, I'm not going back. I'm not going back to Washington. So, well, fast forward, there was no work here for me at the time. And so I went back to Oregon. And for 5-6 months, she lived here in Arizona. And I lived back home in Washington and worked in Oregon. And I think twice I came over here and flew out and spent time with her for about 3-4 days before I went back to work. And the last time, she was ready to just say, you know, let's just live separate. We'll just do a separation, and we'll stay married, but we don't, and we can visit once in a while. But she likes her life by herself, and she likes me not being there. And I was like, well, I'm going to come out and we're going to spend some time together. And so I came out, and when she was driving me back to the airport, I said, Cindy, I really love you and I miss you. And she says, well, I don't miss you. And I was like, you know what? I'm a man. I really need to be needed. And she says, well, I don't need you. And I don't want you to come back. And a man that was broken was just broken some more. And I got on that airplane and I flew back, and I went to work the next day, and I says, I need a layoff. I'm going back to Arizona to save my marriage.
And at that time, it wasn't that I told him I didn't miss him. It was, I was feeling like he was very needy. And I don't know how else to explain, but I really felt like I was, and I didn't know what it was at the time, but not until we went through Warriors and Queens. But I was so living in my masculine. When Lindsay needed something or needed a part of me, I felt like I was giving myself away again. and neither one of our needs were being met by either one of us. And because our roles were so flipped, I was living more as if you want a stereotype, I was living more as a man, and he was living more as a woman if you put the emotions to it or in the relationship realm. And that is very taxing and was for both of us. And so we were really, not that I wanted him to love me and want me, but not need me in order to survive and live. And so when he used those words, I need you, it really triggered me. And like, I don't want him to need me, because if he needs me, then I have to fulfill whatever it is in a non-healthy way. And so that's where that all came from.
About how you came across Warriors and Queens.
And so, okay, wait, I lost track.
I'm sorry.
That's this is fascinating, because I actually remember I was invited to do a Zoom for a mutual friend of ours that we know. And I believe, Cindy, that's where you heard for the first time. It was a Zoom very similar to this. I find it kind of funny. And from that Zoom, we were talking about our live event. And I don't know what it was about that Zoom, but you decided that you wanted to go to that event.
Yeah, so I had yes, and it was so that would have been a year before all this happened, and it was going to be on Zoom because it was when you weren't doing live, and I didn't want to go, and so I didn't do anything with it. But I stalked you and Yvette, and to see the type of people you were and how you guys were so serving and giving, and the things that you were saying were making sense. When the live event came, Lindsay had just moved back here after working in Washington, and I told him I was going to this event whether he came with me or not, because I really didn't want him here, but I wasn't going to be, because this is my third marriage and Lindsay's on his second, and I wasn't going to be the one to initiate it, but by golly, I'm okay if we want to live separately. And he didn't want that. And so when Warriors and Queens Live came up, I told him, I said, I'm going to this, if you want to come, you can, but I'm going to this event.
So where I was, I'm like, is this another one of those church retreats? Because we did like a 6-month program. We went to counseling a few times. We tried all these things to save our marriage, and we just kept beating the same dead horse over and over and over again, and nothing changed. And the same issues were there, the same triggers, the same flames, everything that tore us apart was everywhere we went and everywhere we looked. And I'm just like, this is just another thing. But I was like, okay, you're going to Florida. I've never been to Florida. Heaven forbid you are going to go on another vacation without me. So I'm going. So I went to Warriors and Queens.
And tell us what happened at Warriors and Queens when you guys went there. Obviously, it was a live event, a lot of energy, music. You're around people, most likely strangers you'd never met before. Tell us your guys' experience. What did you learn from there? What did you take from there? And how did things turn around for you?
Because this is mostly for me. So at the place I was when we went to Warriors and Queens, I was 10, 12 years deep in the tunnel. Basically, midlife crisis. I had no desire to be around people. I could barely have a conversation with a man because I had been so emasculated for so many years that I felt unworthy. I felt just like I wasn't a real man. And going to that event, I avoided family gatherings because I didn't want to be around a bunch of people and that energy, and I always just felt really uncomfortable in crowds, even going out to eat. So getting there, and that energy was out of this world. I mean, it was amazing. And Dave kept saying, and Yvette kept saying, if you feel the need to go out, it's probably because you need to stay. And believe me, I wanted to go out many times. I wanted to just get out and go be by myself, because I wasn't in a place to feel that energy. But during that event, and my wife could vouch for this, I saw something. I saw a glimpse of the man I should have been, the man I could be, the man I was supposed to be. And I saw how far off of that path that I was, because I had chased these relationships so hard until I'd buried myself deep in the ground. And that kind of flipped the lights on for me. It was every time they would share different things, and they're like, well, don't elbow your wife if she does this, and I'm sure, and they said, don't elbow your husband if he does this, but I just kept going. Is she listening? Is she listening? Is she listening?
I think that was both of us.
She listening to this? But where I am today, because of Warriors and Queens, is so many miles apart from where I was then. Because there's no way in the world 2 years ago I could sit here in front of a camera and have a conversation with Dave Uloa or anybody else for that matter, and just be able to be me, because I didn't know who I was. I literally did not know who I was back then, but I know who I am. So.
And for me, the little nuggets that were said throughout that event, I found a new hope. I saw that things are possible and things could change, because I had been in counseling for over 30 years because of my past traumas and things as a little girl. And what I got in that 3-day weekend couldn't even touch what I had gotten in 25 years or 30 years of counseling. I did wonders with counseling, but the pivot for the relationship aspect was not ever taught in the ways that Dave and Yvette share. And it just provided so much hope that I had a change of heart where I was willing to invest in my marriage. And to see the transformation that Lindsay had from the first day we got there to the night we left, if I could have that little speck in that 3-day event to happen for a lifetime, it was priceless. And it was from that moment that I knew that God had us where we were at, in the moment we were at, to be in an event because of where we're at and where we came from. And it's because of our past and because of the stuff that we have gone through that it has blessed and strengthened our marriage.
So yes. If I could make this one point, there's a green pill and a red pill. If you take the green pill, you live your life as it is now and nothing changes. If you want something to change, take the red pill and go to the live event, because the Matrix is real and we're all living in it, and we all need to get out. Every single one.
That's beautiful. Wow. Lindsay and Cindy, such a powerful, powerful message. And you're 100% right, Lindsay. The relationship matrix is real. And we all have life experiences. And you guys have gone through so much, so many tough moments. And it's easy for people to give up on love. And you guys chose not to. And one of the things that you learned, I'm sure, and that those that come to our live events realize is a lot of reasons why therapy doesn't work. I was talking to somebody earlier today. People really want to have better relationships. I asked them a question. I said, if you were to talk to the younger generation, they were married 44 years, they've been married. If you were to talk to the younger generation today, what would you tell them if they were have challenges and they're suffering in their relationship? And I'll never forget, she goes, oh, easy answer. She said, I would tell them, go to a restaurant, go to a cafe and find a couple that's eating dinner in their older years and ask them, how did you guys go through the challenges? Go, don't do this marriage counseling stuff. That doesn't work because they don't have the relationship that you're looking for. If you want a long-term loving relationships, and from that perspective is why we created an event where couples can come and have a safe place to work through their own junk. Because instead of blaming each other for why you're suffering, we know that doesn't work. So we're all showing up, and the key to saving relationships is, number one, is you got to work on yourself. And it usually comes from loving yourself first. The reason why you bicker, you fight, is because you don't love yourself, and you're projecting that onto somebody else, especially your partner, because they're the ones that's going to trigger you the most. And if you're constantly in blame mode, like you guys were in the beginning, and then you realize, oh, hang on a second, maybe there's something for me here too. And what's really cool, Lindsay, I remember seeing you when you first came in. I'd never officially met you before, but when you first came in, it was pretty interesting because you were very reserved. You were very quiet. I could tell you had one foot in the door, one foot out of the door. And I didn't know, because sometimes people leave the event. And like you said, it's in those moments where you feel uncomfortable that sometimes, I got to go to the bathroom. I got to go make a phone call. I got to check a text. And usually that moment, you're so close to the breakthrough. And the fact that you decided to stay in the fire and you trusted the process. And by day 2, just so everybody knows, this was Mr. Lindsay Bloomfeld by day 2. Oh, what? You doing the Cabbage Patch? Go, Lindsay. Go, Lindsay.
I can show you how to move it.
You got moves, Lindsay. You got moves. So I thought that was so special. And the fact that we've had so many people tell us that, what we've learned for 10 years and going through other things, we were able to handle in one weekend. And nobody's perfect. Not one weekend is going to change everything, but it could change what your relationship is right now. And what if you could go to a weekend for 2.5 days and turn decades into pain and suffering? And right now you might be in a situation where you lost hope and you're like, I don't know if this can change. I lost my connection with my partner. We're just in that status quo. We really don't communicate. We're arguing, we're fighting all the time. And matter of fact, it's even worse than that. We don't even talk anymore. And you're looking to see, can this be turned around? We have story after story, and Lindsay and Cindy are two of just an incredible story of how their life changed. But they also participated in their own rescue. They showed up. They played full out. They actually did the work. And for that, I commend you, because what's the other option when you think about relationships today? The other option is losing half your wealth to attorneys and then splitting the rest. It's continuing to fight and suffer, and we know how that can also turn into health challenges, and then the lack of intimacy. And what if one weekend couldn't turn it around? And this is why Yvette and I, we do it just once a year, which is our Warriors and Queens live event. And it's coming up September 27th to the 29th. We have some tickets that are still available. We'll put the link to the website in the chat. It's warriorsandqueens.com/live event. And it's all about helping couples to bring back that deep soul connection in a fun, playful way. People love the experience that they have, the people that they meet. There's so many people that come that are playing relationship life at the highest level, and many of them have become lifelong friends because they participated and they experienced a great event together. People laugh, people have fun. There might be shedding of some tears, but one thing we know for sure, there's a lot of healing also that happens at our live events, and it's focused on 3 different things: partnership, passion, and purpose. because we truly believe at Warriors and Queens that to have an unshakable relationship, you need to have those three things. If you just have partnership, that's awesome. You're going to be great friends and roommates. But if you don't have that passion, which is intimacy, that intimacy is completely opposite of what partnership brings. Because if you think of partnership, partnership is about familiarity. Partnership is about getting along, having great communication, having great conversation. But if that's all you have in a relationship, you got a great buddy. And it's not nothing wrong with that. But if you really want to have an intimate, loving relationship, then you got to have that passion. But passion is completely opposite than partnership, because passion is mystery. Passion is opposite. And how do you keep that intimacy alive in a relationship? It's all about polarity. And polarity means opposites, very similar to electricity. You got a negative and a positive charge. It's what creates electricity. You got the North Pole and the South Pole. In a relationship, you have to have the feminine and the masculine. And if you have flipped polarity, that even creates more chaos. And the craziest thing is most couples don't even know why they lost the intimacy, and it's because they flipped the polarity. So how do you get that polarity back, where the woman feels safe to open her heart and starts to receive that inspired devotion from her man, where she doesn't have to force it. She doesn't have to control it. She doesn't have to manipulate for it. She receives it because her heart is wide open to her man. It's like a tango dance. There's got to be a leader and there's got to be a receiver. And the beautiful tango dance is when the masculine man, his spine is online and he knows how to treat his lady. He leads the dance with inspired devotion. And what a man wants from his queen, completely opposite than a woman. What does a man want? His dream relationship is this. He wants to be respected. He wants to be appreciated. And he wants to be the hero in his relationship. Cindy said something so important. She doesn't need a needy man, but the man needs to be needed. There's a difference between being needy and being needed. If your man doesn't feel like he's the hero in his home, he's going to go be the hero somewhere else, at his business, at his career, with his friends, at a hobby, or heaven forbid, having an affair where another woman treats him like the hero because he doesn't feel like he can be the hero in his home. So at Warriors and Queens, our mission is to save 1 million couples worldwide. And Cindy and Lindsay, you guys are two of the most special couples that we have in our Warriors and Queens community. So thank you for your time. Do you have any final words for our community before we let you go?
No, just thank you. This was fun.
I will say that when Lindsay and I got married, I would not say something that I didn't feel in my heart. And he would always say how much he loved me, how much I was his best friend. And it wasn't until this last year and a half and going through Warriors and Queens where I can actually look at Lindsay and say, he is my best friend. I do want him as my life partner, and I'm not going anywhere. And I could not say those words the first 8.5 years of our marriage. So thank you, Dave and Yvette, and for providing Warriors and Queens, because I can honestly say he is the man of my dreams.
And on the flip side of that, the one thing when we met, when she looked at me with these eyes, that's what I bought into, is that love and that passion and that devotion in her eyes. And when that was gone, that's all I wanted back. That's all I wanted back. And for 8 years, it was gone, and there was nothing I could do to get it back until Warriors and Queens. Until this program and these things. And I can't tell you, I don't know where we'd be without it, but we wouldn't be together. And,
or we'd be living separately.
And we'd be on to the next one, probably halfway through it, and miserable again. So thank you.
Thank you, guys. One last thing, I got you guys open to sharing it, because we got to experience seeing you walk into the Warriors and Queens live last year, was it, or year before, right? And then we got to see the you in Mexico. Would you mind sharing us a little bit about Mexico?
What do you mean?
Let's just say there was no lack of passion.
I love it. My studio producer slid me this letter saying, "Could you have him share about the lovey-dovey in Mexico?" So I had to ask.
Let's just say we got there and they gave us 2 single beds.
And I don't think it was by accident.
That wasn't gonna fly.
They were like
That is beautiful. You guys look from the outside looking in. You guys look like newlyweds, giggling, holding hands everywhere you went. It was so beautiful to watch. So thank you, Cindy and Lindsay and Cindy, for going through the fire, sticking through it. And we know none of us are perfect. We're still learning and growing. But where you guys are today is such an inspiration to our community and to those that are watching. So they're just proof that no matter where you are, you can turn it around. It's just a decision away. So hopefully we'll see you at Warriors and Queens Live coming September 27th to the 29th out here in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. Lindsay and Cindy, thank you so much again for your time. And everybody have a great night.
Good night.
Good night.